Bonjour, AJ Inspiredum here, and today we are going to get beading. So I'm going to be tilting my camera down so you can see exactly what I'm working with, and I will be talking about each step of the process with you and kind of trying to zoom in on the items as we're doing it. I am a reserved tribal member to White Earth Reservation, but just knowing this whole process, everybody does things differently. And not one person may be right or wrong. It could be what they've learned, what was handed down to them, or what they've learned themselves because they didn't have something handed down to them. So I always like to try different ways, or if I see something that's interesting, or maybe I might think it may work out better than what I'm currently doing, I try it. So we're going to go through the way I know how to do it, and that is what I'm going to teach you or show you how I'm doing it. And if you see a different way out there down the line, feel free to try that as well. Let's do it. All right. So as my previous video already told you, we're hoping that you had already came up with a design in mind. This was one that I had showed you before. It has 2 rows over next to the cabochon with our rhinestone. This was another 2-row one that I showed you with, there was the 1 row of one color, then kind of rotating between 2. For the earrings, you could possibly do 3 rows, 1, 2, 3, and then of course your edging, but it's up to you. Some earrings I like a little bigger, others I don't. So what we're first going to do is lay out everything on our workstation that we received in our kit. So you have the colors that you're going to use in your little triangle trays. You have your needles, you have your beeswax thread, cabochons, the white piece, which is going to be our foundation that we're actually going to be putting our work on and beading, and then of course your glue. But before we go too far, I just wanted to tell you that anytime you order cabochons or you make them or you're getting them from someone, make sure that you analyze the back. So I've made these types of cabochons before, and I've used cardstock, but a lot of people use photos, and you can, especially with these, the ones that are glass domes, so you can use photos. But the problem is this back here is extremely slippery. There's really nothing for it to grab onto. So what I'm going to just kind of show you is something that I do to prep the cabochons. Now if you're using a gem or a stone for the earrings, or if you have a stone type cabochon, maybe you have some type of gems. If you're looking at the back, they're normally like a metal or a foil, or even if it's a plastic or acrylic, that's fine. It's when it comes to these slippery photos that you just want to be a little bit aware of. And they're very popular. Breast cancer awareness, people use the photos, and you just need to kind of mark up the back a little bit. So I'm going to kind of walk you through that. So with every one that I get, I analyze the back. I have some sandpaper here. I've heard people using scissors and other things to mark them up. I personally just use an 80 grit sandpaper. So this is like the most grit sandpaper you can use. So if you were sanding wood, this would be the first one you would sand with. And I literally just take my finger, and I'm not gonna go crazy on it. I'm just scuffing it up a little bit. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to hit any of the glass because you'll scratch it. So all I do is you'll see it here. All I'm just going to do is just take my finger, just with a little bit, and I just scuff it up. Just like that. Just a little bit here, a little bit there, and scuff, 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 scuff. Then I go back the other way and scuff, scuff, scuff. And I just keep doing that. Now you don't want to sand it so much that you're going to eventually get to the picture of your cabochon, but you definitely just want to rough it up a little bit. And from the looks of it, as you can see here, I'm going to try to get it in the light so you can see what it kind of looks like, but you can see it's now scuffed up a little bit. And here's an example of another one that I had did. It's a pretty tree. I think this one's just gorgeous, but If you look here, that's exactly what I did. I just wanted to show you what I did. See if I can get the right angle again with the light. And it looks like I'm not going to luck out on that. Well, maybe I can get it there. You can kind of see I just scuffed it up a little bit, not enough to take off any of the picture. I didn't scratch any of the glass. All I did is scuffed it up so it's not so slippery. So now once you have that cabochon that you kind of roughed up a little bit all around, you're going to see, look at it, and for some of them you can see there's a top and there's a bottom. Tree, of course, is the bottom. This would be your top. But when you have something like this, there really isn't a good top or bottom. So you just need to look at it and say, this is going to be my top, this will be my bottom, or whatnot. And for me, I think no matter which way this one would go, it would be pretty. So what we're going to do then is we're going to take our glue. We're going to spin off the cap here. If you haven't already opened your glue, all you do is there's a little bitty pin inside your cap, and you just poke it inside to bust that seal. Now when we do this glue, we don't need to gob it on. This glue holds, but we do need to make sure that we put enough on, but not gob it. So I take a little bit out, you'll see that. It's just a little squish, and I put it right in the middle. And I'm going to try to do this closer to you. So you can see another little squish, and then I just squish it in the middle. Now after I squish it in the middle, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push it around. And I do not want it to come off the edges because first of all, it'll make marks on the glass. Second of all, what it does is it will be very difficult to bead with the glue if any squeezes out there. So now that you have your glue completely on it, you can see it's not a huge layer, it's just a little bit. What you're going to do is look for that center spot on your foundation, and you are just going to apply it in the middle. And once I apply it, I kind of squish it down with my fingers a little bit and put a little bit of pressure. As you can see, I'm just squishing and putting the pressure. Now, if you didn't watch the prior video that just kind of talked about before you start, this glue does take 24 hours to be fully ready and working and doing what it's supposed to do. So what I do after this point is it's on. At this point, when you started, squishing it down a little bit, that was the point that if you noticed it was crooked, that's the time to move it because it's not yet attached. But you just squish it down. I close up my glue. But at this point, you really can't do too much more because this needs to dry. And what I typically do to let it dry is I take something heavy, a book, anything that you have that you could like literally lay on top of it, and let's see if I can tilt you down a little bit more. Not really. Okay. So, but that's what I do. And then I leave this here. And I leave it like that overnight, normally 18, 24 hours. So it's up to you, but I normally do this like on a Thursday if I want to bead on a Saturday, or I do it Friday right after work to start beading on a Saturday. But for this video purpose, if you have not done that yet, we can't really continue with the video until this is fully dry for you. So at this point, I would stop the video, let that dry, and then come back and push play when yours is fully dry. All right then. For the purpose of this video, I already have another one that I've had here since 2 days now. So this is fully ready. It's attached. I had a book sitting on it for the last couple days, so we're ready to start beading with that guy. So, okay, so we have all of our stuff out. And I'm going to try to change the direction here a little bit here so you can literally see everything that I'm doing. And I'm going to prompt you up a little bit. There we go. All right, let's do it. So you had thread. What I do is I take, oh boy, I'm going to do it and then I'm going to tell you how long I take. It is my arm length and from my fingertips to my shoulder is what I take to for one thing of the thread. So go ahead and get that. Then I'm going to take our little beeswax here in the bag. I do recommend leaving it in a bag when you're not using it, velcroing it back shut. Beeswax does dry out and kind of prolong the life. Leave it in the Ziploc if you can. What we're going to do is we're going to be taking our string. We're going to be holding it with one of our fingers, and we're just going to pull the string all the way through the beeswax. As you can see, I'm pulling it through. Now you may ask, why are we doing this? Well, a couple different things. First of all, it extends the life of the thread. Number two, it helps it with not getting kinked up. It helps kind of condition it. There's so many things beeswax does for the thread, and there's thread that you can buy out there that's already pre-waxed. It's more expensive, but you could buy it if you ever have an interest. But I just do it this way, and I run it through about 5 times. Now you can kind of see that my thread, it's not as it's more relaxed. It's a little bit more straight. It's not as curly from, like it was before. So then what we're going to do is we are going to thread one of our needles. And you got 2 needles in your kit. You are going to bead one of them. Thread one of them. And I will be honest with you, sometimes these needles, since we are using 11s with the 11 size needle beads, boy, can they be difficult to bead. So what I would recommend is just taking your time. If you can't get it, walking away. If you have someone with a keen eyesight in your household, sometimes I have to have my 7-year-old daughter do it for me because she has great eyes. But it can be a little bit frustrating, and it can take a while, but we'll get it. Just keep trying, and sometimes depending on how you cut your thread too, if you cut it at an angle, you might be able to thread it a little bit easier. So that's what I'm going to try to do. And if you already got yours, thank you for being patient while I get mine. All right, just got it. Okay, now that we got that guy through, you're going to leave, I don't know, about that much of a tail, because I like having a little tail. What we're going to do then is we're going to tie a knot to the end of that. And I like to tie 3 knots on top of each other. So we have 1, then we're going to do it twice, and we're going to try to land it right next to that last knot. If you don't get it right next to it, try to get it as close as you possibly can. And if you get close, you could always make your 3rd one. Oh boy, I'm trying to zoom in here. You could always do your 3rd one, between them. Or, do up to 4 if you need to. But we will really want a thick knot, just because the type of beading we're going to be doing, there's going to be some pressure on this line, and we definitely do not want anything to come out. So we are going to be trying to do this 3 knots right on top of each other. And I got mine, if you can see it. I just did 3 knots right on top of each other. Okay? All right, so now we have a needle and thread. And what we're going to do is we are going to start this guy. And we are going to be putting it not right next to the cabochon, but I'm going to show you where I put mine. And then we are going to try hard to get it there. So I'm not right next to the cabochon. I'm like, a little bit off. You can see that just right there, just a little bit between there. And that's about the thickness of our beads. So you're going to want to go there, press up through it, and then pull till you get to that knot. And you're going to see that knot's going to hold it tight. So now we are going to put this thread aside. There are several different types of beading styles, and the style that we're going to be doing today is what we would call 2-needle beading. There's also a thing called 1-needle beading and whatnot. We are going to do 2-needle beading today. My purpose, I like how it looks. I like being able to control where my beads are going to lay better. 1-needle beading is another option, but that would be up to you. Today we're going to be doing 2-needle beading. So I am right now just cut my second thread. So do the same exact thing you just did with the first one, just do it with the second one. So same size, same length, same everything. We're going to do the same thing with the beeswax. We're going to kind of run it through there 4 or 5 times. And then once we get our lines ready, we'll be good to go. This is my 3rd time running it crossed. And my 4th. Looks like I'm going to go 1 more, just to be on the safe side. All right, I got that all done. So I'm going to put my beeswax back in this little baggie, and I'm going to Ziploc it to keep it nice and fresh. Okay, now we're going to take this, and now we are going to use another needle, and we are going to thread that. So I don't know if you had too many difficulties with your last one like I did, but we are going to do it again. And this is what we're going to use as our sewing needle. So the first one we did, we are going to be using strictly as our needle that holds the beads. And then this one is going to be the needle that actually does all the sewing. So equally important, and we're going to work with them together, and you're going to see how we're going to do this. And I think once you start seeing how it works, you'll just be able to pick up and go and continue without much help. And of course it's going to take me forever to thread this guy, but I got him. All right, so I'm going to also put a knot in here, and it's going to again be 3 knots on top of each other. So if you want to do that, and again I'm trying to get close to the end, but it doesn't really matter because we're just going to end up cutting that off anyways. But I do like to get closer to the end, but really up to you, just as long as we can get a really nice thick knot. Since this one is going to be the one tacking everything down, there will be a lot of pulling and work done on this one as well. So we definitely want to make sure that we have really nice knots at the end to hold into that foundation. So, all right, I'm to my 3rd knot, and if you are not keeping up or you're still working on something that I've already passed, feel free just to pause the video and catch up when you are at our point. Okay, so this is our, to the left, I always keep on the left, is my needle that I use for the beads. The needle on my right is I keep for the sewing. So needle left, beads, right, sewing. So we have our needle on the left. This main purpose of this guy is just to hold beads. So what we're going to do is we're going to load them up with beads. And I believe you may have already came up with your own pattern of what you wanted to do. If you wanted to do one solid color, then 2 colors, or if you wanted to do rotation between the colors, whatever you decided your pattern is going to be, that is what you're going to put on this now. And we are going to see how it looks before we start tacking it down. So I'm just going to start lining mine up. I am going to do, this one says make a difference, and this is a kabachin I made. And maybe I'll make a video on how to make these, but I'm really going to just do 1 row of blue first because I really want to pull out that blue. So I'm just going to load up my needle with a whole bunch of blue. And really, if you're not sure how many you need, I'm going to say first start with like maybe 20. And then you'll notice you'll need a lot more to go. But start with a whole bunch, put them on your needle, push them down. And when you push them down to your thread, you're going to notice I need a lot more. So we're going to just keep on loading them up and loading them up. And even if we put too many on there, there's a way that we can take those excess ones off. But this is kind of a lengthy process, but it won't take us too long just to load them up. And don't forget, if you're doing a pattern, if you were doing every other, or if you were doing every 3 colors, however you were doing it, make sure you're sticking with that pattern as you're loading your thread up with the beads. And you can see I'm almost halfway, but not there yet. Halfway. Keep going. Okay. So we're just going to keep going. The other thing about beads too is, while we're working on this, is not all beads are made the same. There's several different manufacturers. Each one makes them slight different, either rounder, cylinder, wider. They're all different. So I think it's very important, if you're buying beads or you're looking into purchasing beads, to understand the manufacturers, the different ones, different shapes, because when you're beading a product, you really want to use all of the same size, or at least shape, of beads. And we'll get into that in a little bit later, but as you can see, I still need more beads. So I'm going to keep loading mine up here. If you are already done, wow, great for you. I'm catching up to you. If not, just keep going. Especially if you're doing a pattern of like 2 or 3 beads, this is definitely going to take you a little bit longer, because then you're going between 3 different colors to picking which ones you want in the pattern that you're doing. And another thing I'd recommend too about the patterns is, if you notice your colors are supposed to be, say, red, white, blue, red, white, blue, red, white, blue, but then you made a mistake and did red, red, blue, I really would recommend backing it out and fixing it. There's a couple different reasons. You could say, forget it, it's not a big deal, right? And then you get to the end of your product and you're like, man, I really wish I should have fixed that. Well, then it's kind of too late, right? The way I see it is, somebody once told me that beading could be looked at as your, like, kind of a life situation. If you notice you make a mistake and you leave it, well, that might be what some people do, right? And that's just how you live your life. It's no big deal, and you just say, I'm not going to do it again. But other people see a mistake in their life and they say, I need to fix that. And they go back and they fix it, so they move forward in their life without any regrets. And I guess that's just how I look at it, is if I see a mistake, I'm going to do the work to back it out, just because I just don't want to get to the end of something I worked really hard on and say, darn, I wish I would have fixed that, or I wish I would have changed that, or I should have just did it when I could have. All right, so I have my beads on here, and as you can see, I put too many. I'm holding them up to my piece, which is what you're going to want to do to see, first of all, how does that look? Do I like it? Does that pattern make sense? But you're going to kind of just want to see if you like it. I think this, for me, this looks good. But you can see I have too many beads I put on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold them, stick my needle back through them, and then I'm going to hold those beads as I pull my needle out. Now they're all in my hand. I put them back in, and now I have the correct amount of beads that I need for my project. Now, if you had tried to do a pattern of like 2 or 3, and you did your little spin around here and you notice, my pattern's not going to work because either the blue is getting cut off, or the red is getting cut off, or it's not matching up. Well, you have a couple options. You could either, I guess I would be curious, to see or kind of hear like what pattern struggles there may be. If you were trying to do a pattern of 3 and it just wasn't syncing up. I would say, you know, you might want to try something creative. We're doing like, you know, 2 or 3 reds up here and then doing the pattern the rest. Or if you're doing a pattern of 2, the patterns of 2, I'm trying to see if I have any patterns of 2. You know, you could try a variation where you're going to do 2 1 2 1 2 1 type thing, and take those around and see if that gives you your look. You know, if 3 doesn't work, you can keep playing with it. And throughout this video, at any point you get behind or you have to step away, I understand how life comes up, just pause the video. That's why I'm making these, so that you can come back and watch them whenever you have time. This is also another project that I feel that you shouldn't be stressed. This should be something that you're at a good point, you're at a good happy point, and you're ready to be creative. So if you're feeling like you're getting overwhelmed or stressed with this activity, it would be probably best to maybe put it down, walk away, maybe try again the next day or 2 days, or when you have time again. I work a full-time job, so I bead when it feels right for me. And when I get stressed about something not working, I walk away. So we are going to take that bead needle and we're going to lay it back to the left. Now we're going to take our needle on the right. We already threaded and we already knotted. So we're going to take this one, and this is what we're going to sew with. So you have your beads, and it doesn't matter actually which direction you start with, if you're starting on your right or your left of the cabochon or gem. But what I do is I take half of them and I take them and I move them down, so that I have half sitting on a table, half in front of me on the white beading foundation. I wrap it around my finger about 3 times, sometimes 4 depending. So I may have to adjust this a little bit as I play here. Yeah, so the 4 time worked. So what I'm doing is I'm putting tension on this finger, so this holds how I want it to hold. Then I'm going to kind of use my thumb as a guide. So my tension here in my fingers, you can see it's pretty tight. My thumb, you can see there's a lot of pressure here that I'm holding these beads down as well. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to make it so that the beads lay the way you want, 1. 2, you don't have any beads that are, you definitely don't want it to be like this and you're trying to sew it down, because that's just not going to be right. You really want this thing to be laying completely down. So if it could get to look like this, with all your tensions between your fingers and your thread, this would be the best way to bead it. Something very tight like this and easy to hold, and your beads are not crumpled. You can see that they are all straight. I'm not putting too much pressure that they're kinked or overlapping each other. They are just nice and straight next to each other. And that is what you're trying to achieve with holding it with the pressure. So once you have it to a point where you want, when you bead, first thing you're going to do is go up the first one. And I'm going to do it, but then I'm going to show you what I'm doing. You come up between bead 1 and 2 to the right of it. So you can see that my beads are kind of moving. Let's see if I can get a better angle here. Beads 1 and 2 to the right of it. So your goal is to get to the right of that thread between the 2 beads. Once you get there, you pull and pull and pull, and make sure you watch where it's coming from and where it's going. Then I'm going to bead on the left side of that thread, the other one, right next to that center, the gem, cabochon, whatever you have, and I'm going to push down. Your goal here is to tack down the thread that we already have there for the oh boy, and sometimes you make a mistake here, so that's what I did, so I have to fix it real quick. What your goal is to tack down that yeah, I did not pull mine all the way through. So, but your goal is just to tack down that beading thread so that that thread is stable where you want it, how you have it. So after that, you're going to want to do that to about every 2 beads. And I know that seems like, wow, that's every 2 beads. That's a lot. Yeah, well, it's going to hold it though. It really will. And that is our goal, is to have our thread hold down where we want. Yeah, somehow I didn't bring my thread all the way through, and that is what happens. So I'm just fixing mine, but again, every 2 beads you are going to tack it down like we just did right now. Okay, and making sure that that stays tight. And when we get around to the other side, we're going to fix the 2, but mine is not tacking down all the way, so give me a second here. I need to pull it tight. There we go. So when you are done tacking, as you're sewing, it might become loose again, and your only goal is to just keep giving it a little tug again, and it comes nice and tight again. So we're going to take our right needle, and we're going to do the same. And again, it's every 2 or 3 beads. So just keep going. Look for your second bead. And again, go through the 2 beads. Oh boy. Excuse me. Here I got off center, but you're going to go through the 2 beads and come up, pull it tight, and go back down. And be really careful here, because it's still thread. So could it get kinked? Sure. Yeah, we put a lot of beeswax on it, but it could still happen. So you just want to make sure the thread goes down to the 2 beads that you originally wanted. Now you're going to go to the next 2 beads, and you're going to continue through those 2 now. You're going to come up. Now this may take people longer, shorter than others. Just take your time. There is no rush to get this done. For many of us, this is a hobby, right? It's not like some people do this as their career, and they make beaded items and they sell them, and that is how they make a living. I don't. So to me, I just do this to kind of like unwind, to kind of feel creative, to kind of feel like I've accomplished something. I never feel like I ever have to sit here and bead. I never say, oh my goodness, I have to sit down and bead this, or I have to sit down and bead that. I don't have that mindset. I have the mindset as, I don't have too much to do today. I'm going to bead. That's my mindset. But as you can see, I'm just tacking down every every 2 beads. And you're just making sure as you go up and you go down that you're just pulling it a little bit tight. You don't have to like go crazy and be like a Hercules on it and pull it. Just a nice little tug like that will do. I'm going to see if I can get my camera to angle a little bit differently in case you're wanting to see exactly what I'm doing. You can kind of see here the thread looks a little loose, but as I pull, it's gone. But that's also a good way too, right, to remind you like, oh, where did I leave off if you walked away, or you're kind of just doing what I did, readjusting cameras or maybe taking a sip of coffee. It's kind of a good reminder like, oh yeah, I just tacked down that one, let me go over 2. And all you're going to just do is keep going over, looking for that second bead over. You're going to get between the two beads. I'm right between them. I'm going to come up, going to go down, if you get caught up on the ends, just loosen it up. Sometimes it's nice too to look at your back and make sure that you don't see anything looped back there or that it's caught up on anything, because that can kind of cause an issue too, like where's all my thread, and then you realize it's back there. So I have to do a little of adjustment here, but you can see string is still really tight, and that's making ours a very, very nice seam right next to our center. And I lost my place, so I'm picking it up, and there's my last thread. So now I'm going to pull it tight, and it's gone. So now I remember where I was, and I'm going to kind of hold the beads with my thumb, if you can kind of see that, so that they kind of keep the beads exactly where I wanted. Otherwise you're going to get beads that are very spaced or laying a little on their sides if you don't do it just that way. And I'm going to go up again to my second bead, and sometimes it takes several different attempts to get it right where you need it, but it doesn't matter if it takes you 5 times. As long as you get it to the spot that you're looking for, it's fine. And then you're going to go up, and you'll see too, you know, we did put the beads up there, wrapped it around, and we said, okay, this is how many beads that we're going to need. Sometimes it changes by the end, so we're going to hope it doesn't, but if it does, we will have to make some modifications, meaning taking more beads off or maybe even adding some beads. So when you're doing your estimating in the very beginning, you know, it's really hard to determine if all of the beads were laying completely flat when we did that. It's also hard to determine if there's actually going to be any, I guess you could say, any, I don't know, gaps with our sewing by accident. So it's always something that can change, and we just adjust it once we get to the end, and I will show you how to finish that off. As you can see, I am just still going every 2 beads, tacking that thread down, staying to the right of my bead, going over the thread, and then going to the left of the thread. And that way it's keeping my stuff the way that I needed it to stay. As you can see, I'm still using my thumb to hold the beads so that they're tight together. And you can still see I'm using a lot of pressure here on my finger to hold that, our other string, which we're not using right now, just to hold the beads tight. Okay, so I'm down to about 2 or 3 beads that I don't have tacked down at this point, because it's getting pretty hard to hold my thumb and sew at the same exact spot. I'm going to grab more beads. So I'm going to put my right needle down, pick up my left needle, and I'm just going to bring some of those beads on down, because we already have them on here. So we can push them in there, and then this is what we're going to use now. So we're going to put our left needle over there. We're going to put that same tension around the beads, and you can see I'm using my thumb again to hold the beads in the line. You can see I'm using the pressure on my finger to hold it tight. I'm going to take my right needle that we've been sewing with, and I'm going to continue to tack down. Fortunately, I forgot where I'm at, so I'm going to pick it up, and it's going to kind of show me there. I need a tack right there. It shows. So I'm going to lay it back down. Use my thumb to support it. Pull this tight. And then I'm going to continue every 2 beads. And like I said, sometimes it takes 10 pokes coming up from the back to see where's the spot that you really wanted it to go. But it's fine. I just figure if it takes me that long, it takes me that long. The other thing too is trying to get my needle in the right spot there, but the beautiful thing why I wanted to make these videos was that you can pause it, you can come back, you can re-watch it. If you don't think you got it the first time and you want to try again, come back and just keep trying different things or different ways. And you can see I'm just tacking it down still, and just try different ways of doing things. Now, if next to your gem or your kabachin, it is really a struggle to get your needle in there, it could be because some glue leaked out. And that is the case, there's really nothing we can do about it, right? Because the glue has been drying for 18 to 24 hours, so there's not much more we can do. The only thing that you can do is just push into it with a little bit more pressure until you get it all the way through. Since the glue has been dried for so long, there's really nothing that we're going to be able to do to get that out. So my recommendation is just understand and just try a little bit to push a little bit more harder when you're going through the area that may have had some glue. And you can see I kind of forgot where I was, so I backed it up a little bit. And I am now going to go 2 over. The reason why I chose these types of beads is, one, I really like that these beads are pretty much all the same size and shape. I really do. There's some beads that are out there that they are not the same size beads. So when you're trying to bead a project, you'll get one that's like huge and then one that's really tiny. And if you're trying to do any type of patterns, it completely throws it off. So I really like these beads. I marked on your containers the manufacturer's name and the size. The size are 11, and I did that for a special reason, I guess you could say. I like them. There are different sizes. There's smaller, there's bigger, but personally for me, the 11s are just right. They're not too big, they're not too small, and there are so many different color options with 11s. Beads work the opposite way than you would think. The higher the number, the smaller they go. So when you get up to like 15s size beads, they're so small. But not just that, but they don't have as many color choices as 11s do. And I just kind of, I don't know, started with 11s. I did try 12s, I did try 10s, and I really just like the 11s. So that is why I included them in the kit. I think they're a really great bead to bead with. The manufacturer that I gave you was, like I said, they all come about the same size. They don't cause any added frustrations about, oh my goodness, that bead was completely a different size, I have to back that out. So yeah, and they don't fade, they just are real easy to work with. Some beads do fade, so if you were having something that touched the skin a lot, and you think about the oils on the skin, those beads eventually do fade. These do not. And then they have different ones. You know, the ones I'm dealing with are transparent, which means you see right through them. Other ones that a lot of them in the kit are not transparent. So it makes it really easy to bead with them because you don't see your backgrounds. And it just, real nice beads to work with. Really, they are. And as you can see, I'm just going along every 2 beads. This is not a project that you can do in 10 minutes. I even think the most experienced person that does this constantly by making earrings for a living probably still can't finish a piece of work in 10 minutes. And I think that's probably why when you're looking at buying something made from by a Native American, it's pretty costly, and it's just because of the time, the effort that goes into them. And you can see here just tacking down all of these beads. This is taking us a little bit, and this is just row 1. We still have, you know, another row to do, possibly 2 more depending on what you've decided. And then I like the rhinestone bandings and the plastic bandings. I think they just add a little flair to the pieces, so you have to think we have that to do as well. Then we still have to attach, you know, the backing, and there's a lot that goes into it, all these little pieces. And I'm going to walk you through each of them. Don't think I'm just going to get up after this and say, okay, you're on your own. I'm going to walk you through all them, but just so you know, this is a process. Some people, I would say, could probably finish one of these in maybe beginning to end, I don't know, maybe 4 hours. And again, it's the type of beading, right? We're doing 2 needle beading, which definitely takes a lot longer than doing a single needle beading, but that's okay. I really prefer this type of beading. I think, as you can see, right where you are tacking down, hold on, I have to back that guy out a little bit here. You're noticing, like, right where you want your beads to go is where they're going. And sometimes with 1 needle beading, you don't get that same result. So I hope you're enjoying the work you're doing so far and liking what you see. Again, this is not something you do in 10 minutes. So if you decide after an hour, like, okay, 1 hour is enough, then stop. Take a break. Put everything back in your beading kit, and when you feel like you have another hour, sit back down and rewatch the video from the point you left, and then continue. No stress here. We're just doing a hobby. I didn't want it to be stressful. I just wanted to carry down the traditions of teaching, and I didn't want people to have to pay a fortune for the kits, 1, and 2, I didn't want to have people pay a fortune to have to learn something that many of us could have had handed down to them, but just chose not to, which was me, right? So I am getting very close to being almost done with my first row. So I'm going to kind of walk you through what I do here. So I'm going to try to pin it to the camera so you can see. As you can see, I have 4 beads left to go. 1, 2, 3, 4. They just all fell down because I don't have them tapped in yet. As you can kind of see here, these beads were going to be all of the ones that I needed to wrap, but as we started sewing, you can kind of see they might not all fit. I may have to take off 1, and what I just do then is I move it over, then I reposition it, and I see if this is the right fit. Let me get rid of that. And you can kind of see I have a gap. I don't like that. So I'm going to bring that bead back. I think I had 2 extra beads here. And that 1 bead I definitely don't need, and I'm going to try now to see if I could use this one. So I just put 1 bead back. Now I got it. So I'm going to tack that down so I don't lose that. So remember earlier I was saying that sometimes you may think that you're going to use so many beads, and then by the time you get to your end you have 1 left over, or you're actually 1 short. It happens. And in this case, you know, I had 1 extra bead left over that I will not be using, but I can back that out. But as you can see here, I am almost to the edge of mine. I only have one more tack to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be pushing again. I'm going to be putting a lot of tension on this one. And then I'm going to use my nails or a needle and squish the beads in there. Not that they get like bunchy, but just so that they lay straight. And I think I just got it. So I'm going to tack that down real quick. And then I'm going to show you how it looks when I tack it down. So I'm coming up. And what I'm doing in the very last one is, you can see here, it's butted up. I still want to tack down the very last one where this, you know, where we started. I still want to tack that guy down. Even though there's no bead right now necessarily in front of him, I still want to tack down. I prefer just to tack it down again. So as I tack it down, you're going to kind of see the beads shift. And it's going to kind of pull it down. Perfect. Now, what I'm going to do is put that thread down. I am picking up my left thread now. And if you remember, I had one bead left on there. So if you have any beads left over after finishing your first row, take them off. We definitely do not need him anymore. We are done with the first row, and we need this line completely clear. So I'm going to take him off. Now I'm going to take the left thread, and wherever you ended, where you connected your two pieces, you're going to take your thread and you're going to go through the opposite hole. So here was my beads, and I went this way. I want to take that thread, and now I want to go this way inside of that bead. So I am literally going to stick where my last bead was that I just finished sewing and tacking down. I'm going to go to the bead to the left of that guy. It's kind of a struggle to get in there, but let me see if I can get it, and then I can show you. So what I did is where the two beads met from, you know, this one started, this one ended, I went back through it with our needle that we used with all of the beads. Went back through, I did like 4 beads. And you will see when I pull it out, I'm going to pull that string tight. And that's what it should look like. Remembering the thread on our right doesn't have anything to make it tight yet. So you might still see this bead kind of like loose because he's still loose. He's not tacked down to anything yet. We haven't done anything with him. So this guy's going to stay a little bit loose until we tack him down to another row, or we can pull him tight. I hope that's my issue. Why is he not sticking in there? Just bear with me here. I'm trying to make sure I didn't Sometimes this happens. You can kind of see I have a mess here. I had 3 things going in there, and I did not want that to happen. And it happened anyway, so even things can happen to those that do not want it to happen, huh? I suppose. Now I have a really big knot. So let me try to back this out. right. Sometimes it takes a little bit of work, but I got it. Okay. Now that you have this one thread, you're like, what do we do with him? You're going to put him back down through. This is your left needle. You're going to put him back down, right where he's at, right for the inside of your gem. Push him down, pull it out. And you just want to make sure he ends up on the back again, because now we're going to start this row 2. So we need to have him go like we started all over again. So now we're going to have him come up and then reload with beads again. So we will do that. Let's go with row 2. All right, and we're going to put him on the left. We have our thread on the right, and we're just going to leave it right there for right now because there is nothing we need to tack down right now. So leave you right there. Now on your left side, we are going to do the exact same thing. We are just going to put another row of beads around, okay? I'm going to do, for this one, I'm going to do a rotation of white, blue, white, blue, white, blue, because it's water. So I think that'll be pretty. So this is the time where we take our left needle and we load it with a bunch of beads. So I'm going to start with blue, and I'm going to rotate between blue and white. So this will take, again, some time because you're going to do 2 different types of beads. It's just going to be a little bit more effort, especially if you were doing 3 beads. This definitely would be taking more time, and like I said, you know, feel free to take your time and pause the video or come back, or since you know how to do row 1, you don't, you know, really need to see this part of row 2. You could fast forward it to the rhinestone part, where we're going to either be taking down our rhinestone banding, up to you. But you can see here I just loaded a little bit on here just to see if I like that pattern, and I think I like it. You can kind of see the blue, the white. So I'm going to keep going with this because I like how that looks. So I'm just going to keep loading blue, white, blue, white, blue, white. So you do whatever pattern works best for you, and this is what I'm going to do on mine. Now I could have done an all white on this one. I could have done another all blue. I see some people beading some really creative, like all black things, and it's like, wow, that's a lot of black, but they actually, it turned out really nice looking. So really up to you what you want to do for your row 2. And the reason why I'm saying 2 rows for some of these items, and the pop sockets, you may want to go 3 or 4. For me, 2 rows with a banding makes it perfect around. You don't want this to be out here because that's just huge, and these things take a lot of abuse. You got to think about, we're putting them in our purses, we are hitting them hard on our pants, we might, you know, run into something, I don't know, but I know for me, my laptop bag constantly hits mine, and you want it to be approximately the size of what you're going to be attaching it to. You can see mine's just a little bigger, but not huge, and I like that for the 2 rows. Again, these are with 2 rows in the rhinestone banding and then the edging, and you can just really see that it didn't give too much extra room. Here's a different type 2 banding. This is a different type of edging that I did, but you can see, again, not too much. That's like the perfect amount, and I would say that's going to hold true for the lanyards as well. Now, the pins, you could go out, you know, 3 if you wanted to. Typically the pins that I've seen or I've done, I did 2 as well, and then I did the banding. You could try 3. You have a pen, so you just have to think about how heavy and how the pin's gonna lie on you. But the pop sockets are really popular, and you definitely want to make sure the item that you're beading will fit on a pop socket, meaning that this is too small for a pop socket. Maybe you would want something bigger so that the whole pop socket fits in the middle. So you may, pop sockets, you know, you may want to go 3 or 4. And, you know, definitely a lot of different pattern options there. 1 row of each color, rotating between 2 colors, 1 row, and then another row. Really up to you. But earrings, you have a couple different options too. I mean, I don't like huge earrings. I have made some, and you know, they were bigger, but you have to think about, like, if you're making this as a gift for yourself, how big earrings do you like? Do you like huge ones? Well, then you may want to go several rows. If you like more petite earrings, then you may just want to go 2 or 3 rows and stop, look at them and say, is this big enough, or would I actually prefer bigger? And that's just what you're going to do, is analyzing every row one at a time and see if that's the right size for you. As you can see, I am only halfway around, so I'm going to keep going here and I'll just keep talking. But I did do a couple pair of earrings that were pretty big, and I wouldn't say they're heavy, right, because beads are super light, and I mean, there's really not much weight to them, but sometimes the crystals, but still there's not much weight to these earrings at all. But this size of them, you know, these were ones that I did, and kind of comparing them to like a pop socket, just the difference, you know, it was about the same width as a pop socket, but long, you know. And if you think about it, you know, it's like longer than your index finger, and you have to put, you know, think about like your neck, you know, how long of a neck do you have? Will it be kind of sitting on your shoulder, or is it going to, do you have a long neck? I was one of those people that were that do have a longer neck, so I can wear earrings like that without it hitting my shoulder without a problem, but other people don't. So you may want to consider that too when you're thinking about your earrings and how many rows you want to go around. Keep that in mind as well. So like I said, with this pattern of every other, if you're noticing, if you make an error with your colors, this is the time where double check those colors and make sure that you don't see an error, and that, you know, everything's lining up to the way that you wanted it to line up. And let me see if I can get some better lighting. Here we go. Make sure you can see your item and that you don't see any pattern issues. And if you did, this would be the time to back it out, right? And try to correct that if that's what you chose to do. Let me get some lighting back here. All right. For me, I need bright light to bead, especially when I'm looking at the smaller beads. So I'm just going to load up some more here. I'm still a little bit short, and then I'm going to see what my pattern looks like when I can touch the two. Hoping I don't have to back everything out because my patterns don't match. So we will see, huh? Okay, I'm still a little, about 1/4 done. But like I said, you're just going to kind of hold it in place and look to see if that pattern looks good, or if you like the color options that you see. But I'm going to keep stringing them on here. Sometimes if you hit the bead at the angle, they'll just go right on your needle. Other times they don't. All right, I'm going to see what this looks like. Again, it's kind of hard to know exactly how it's going to look when it's flat, but I'm probably going to say I still need like 10 more beads, so I'm going to just keep loading here. Not sure what your patterns are going to look like, but hopefully you're happy with them. I know I kind of cut out some of the thought process, you know, actually I shouldn't even say thought process, it's sometimes the more time-consuming portion when you have to think about the colors and what you're going to use as your center, and the banding is, you know, what color is it going to be. So a lot of that thought process was already taken care of, but still you have to figure out now what you're going to do with that, right? So hopefully you put some thought into that and you're going to be very happy with your results. All right, I strung on some more beads here. I'm going to see if I have a good run. And I think I put one too many on. So I'm going to just back that guy up. I'm going to back him off. Again, you stick your needle in the bead that you're trying to take off and just pull your needle through it. And there you go. So I'm going to put my left needle down. As you can like I said, it's not easy, right? Because you're trying to hold it down at the same time, but you're just trying to get an estimate about how many beads you're going to need. Sometimes it's best just to put 6 beads on at a time and go with it if you're doing a really difficult pattern. But as you can see, I think that's going to look good. It's going to be blue in the middle and the first, and then blue white on the outside. I like it. I'm going to go with this. All right, so now we're going to just start the whole process again. I eliminate half of the beads, let the other half on the table, and then I do all of the tension of my finger again. And then I use my fingers to hold the beads where I want them. You can either, you know, sometimes use a nail, or you can just use your finger to hold it there. I'm going to take our right needle, and we are going to start this time again. We are going to do the first bead. Come up between the first and second, and then we're going to go behind the first and second and pull it down. And we just want to tack down that first bead, just because getting that guy down first, it's important. Now we're going to go over 2, and we're going to do the exact same thing as we did the whole first row. We're going to tack them down. Another thing you can do too is if you keep getting caught on your corners like I am, just let me pull this tight here. All right, you can carefully cut all your edges so they're circular. They won't get caught on your thread as much, but please be careful when you're cutting not to cut one of your threads. Either right or left. You don't want to cut either of them accidentally yet. So, and you could have done that in the beginning too, but that way you got rounded corners, so hopefully nothing gets caught anymore. And because now I forgot where I am, because I did that, luckily, you know, it kind of popped up telling me that was the last bead I was at. So I'm going to pull that one tight. so I remember where I was. There we go. And then I'm just going to keep beading. Every 2 beads, go up the right side, and your goal is really get between the 2 beads and then to just tack down that thread that's holding our beads. Keeping tension. As you can see, I have a lot of tension. I don't know if you can see that, but I have a lot of tension right now on my line to make sure that this one stays tight, which I think is very important, right? Because depending on where our thread lands is what we're going to tack down. So we definitely want that thread to be tight and put right where we want it, so we don't have any issues. And if you ever feel like you got accidentally like way off on your positioning and you feel like you are not between 2 beads, what I would really recommend is you just verifying you are 2 beads before you completely, like, you know, if right here you notice you are not between 2 beads, then I would really recommend you to pull it back out and reposition it. Because once you pull it out like this and then you realize, oh man, I am nowhere near my 2 beads, then you kind of have to unthread your needle and pull it out, like back up all your thread to the point where you were last, where you thought you were between 2 beads. And personally for me, if the less I have to thread these needles, the better off I am. So I really try to verify I'm between 2 needles, between 2 beads before I get to that point, because I really don't want to have to rethread these guys more than I need to. But if I have to, I do. And I only tell you that because there's been numerous times where I have I thought I was between 2 beads and I totally was not. And what it actually did is when I still continued with it, like, yeah, I must be between them 2, it's just laying weird, it actually made those beads lay kind of like crooked. And I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So it was a lot of effort to back them all the way out to get to the point where they're no longer laying down. So that's just the only reason I tell you that, is just to be aware of that if you do see something or you notice right when you come up, like, ooh, I feel like that one's off, then just keep trying until you know you are exactly right between the 2 beads. That is the importance with the 2 needle beading. And you know, sometimes, like I said before, you might have to do this 7 or 8 times trying to come up, because you're kind of like sewing invisible, kind of like blind. You're coming up with a needle, but you have no clue exactly where you're coming up. You're just estimating. So if that is the case, can't blame us for trying several times or getting it wrong, because we're not looking at that side when we're beading. We're beading the opposite side. So don't be hard on yourself. It's not always the easiest, and like I said, if you are still on the first row or you are just starting the second row, feel free to pause the video, feel free to come back, feel free to fast forward if you're beading way faster than me, if you're sewing faster than me. But yeah, that's the purpose of this video, was so that you can kind of learn when it's best for you. I'm more of a night owl, so I do more of my critical thinking and work in the night hours. But my husband, on the flip side, is a morning person. Ugh. And he is the most, probably, I wouldn't say critical thinking, but I would say he does his best thinking early in the morning. So really up to you. Every person's different. But have to do what's right for you. And it looks like I'm about halfway done with my second one. So take your time. There's no rush. This video, I feel a little rushed just because I don't want you thinking this is a 4-hour video. But I definitely wanted to make sure I talk to you about some different things and talk you through the whole process and be there with you the whole way. But I'm definitely going to be breaking this into some different videos. So this one we are going to be doing the beading, and then the next video we'll be doing the banding, and then of course we're going to be talking about how to apply our backing. We got some fox leather, so we'll talk about how to attach the fox leather, and then we will talk about how to attach, you know, for the earrings and the pop sockets, the pens, the lanyards, all of them. We will talk about how to complete each one, and be different videos for those people that have whichever item they have that they're working on. So I'm not leaving you. I'll be with you from beginning to end. Don't think it's going to be a project that you're going to start and not be able to finish because there's no other guidance for you. No, I'm going to take you through every step, and I already have so many things already ready. So right now I'm beading this one with you, but I already have some earrings that I'm ready to put a hook on. I have a pin that I'm ready to attach. So, you know, I'm going to go through every step with you. But I think the most time-consuming part is this piece, which you guys are doing right now. So if you're doing 2, 3, 4, how many ever rows you're doing, keep doing it. I'm going to stop at 2, but just know that just keep going, and whenever you finish them, the next video you'll watch is going to be banding, and we are going to do we are going to do our rhinestone banding, and you can watch that video, and regardless what product you're using, it's all going to be the same, because I'm just going to show you a couple different ways of attaching different bandings. There's a rhinestone banding, and then there's also like a plastic banding that also has rhinestones. Both of them, I like both of them. I don't know if I have a favorite, or at least I really like working with both. So after we finish these two, and you're ready, you will watch that video, and then we will go to the next set of videos, and I'll be with you the whole way. And whenever you're ready for the next phase is when you watch that video. No rush, no pressure. Like I said, I like to be, I like to think of this as a very calming, relaxing, and creative thing to do. So I'm just glad I get to do it with you. I'm actually short a few beads. So I'm gonna add, I'm gonna add about 4 more beads on here and see where that puts me. Maybe I'll start with 3 beads. If you remember the last time I had too many, now I have too little. And that happens. You know, and that's quite all right. I told you that happens, and we just add beads. That's why I like 2 needle beading. Whenever we realize we're off, we can just add some. And looks like I added 3 and I am still 1 short. It's really hard to zoom in on that. Let's see. Nope, it's not going to zoom in for me. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to add 1. And see if that works. And that'll work. So put my left needle down again. I'm going to get that tension back, because now I am down to like the last 6 tacks I have to do. And I want that tension to remain there throughout the whole thing from beginning to end. So my thread is basically right here, telling me that's where I ended. So I'm going to pull that guy tight. Now I'm going to come back in, and I'm going to continue with the last of my row here. like I said, on that last one that we're connecting from the beginning to the end, we want to tack down that. Just, I know it sounds weird because it's like, oh, it's between two beads, but yep, we still want to tack that down. And then what we're still going to want to do is we are going to still want to take our left thread and go in our very first bead of the second row that we started. So if you can see, let's see if I can get a good view here. This is the one I just was going to tack down, and I'm going to go in the very first beads that I put down. And I'm just going to pull that tight. Let's see if I can get it right this time, because the last time I got a pretty big kink in that. So I'm going to try my best. That's what happens when you pull them out to show. They all kind of get mangled, but you won't have to pull yours out to show anybody, so hopefully yours aren't going through the same headache that mine are going through. Because you should just have left your tension there, and with your tension being there, you shouldn't have any issues keeping your tension and then just pulling in those beads where they needed to go. So, all right. Just gotta fix this one little guy here. Like I said, tension is so important at this point. All right. Well, I think at this point I am going to continue to fix my guy here. In the meantime, I just wanted to let you know to keep going and finishing how many ever rows you're going to do. If you're just going to do the 2 rows, or if you decided, you know what, I'm going to actually go 3 rows or 4 rows. Just know I only did the 2, and that's what my 2 look like. I'll put it straight for you guys. So this is why I like 2 needle beading. You literally put the beads where you want them and they stay. That's pretty cool. So we are going to take, no different than the first row, our needle. We are going to go back down wherever that thread is coming out now. You want to go right through the foundation again, come right out. And so that you have both threads now. It should be on the bottom, on the back, somewhere in the back. And what you're going to do is you are going to tie them off, because when we do our banding, we're just going to use a new thread, and I like being able to tie them off right here because you can use 2 of them together. For the rest of our work, we're going to use a single needle. So we won't be using these double needles anymore. So all I do is I just tie 2, 3 knots together, the 2 strings together, and you can kind of see I just tie the knot. And I'm just going to do 1 more just to make sure. And then once these knots are done, I'm going to cut it. And I do try to cut them pretty close right down to it, but I'm going to show you. So I got done tying, and there's still my work. Still looks all good, all even. And you'll see my threads are back here, and I'm not going to cut them like extremely close, but I will show you how close I'm going to cut. Let's see if I can, like that. So I still have a little bitty tail. You can see there's just a little bitty tail here, and that's fine. If you left a really long tail, it might get mixed up in our next part, you know, with more threads back there. The more kind of things can get caught up or mingled together. So I take my thread, I get rid of this stuff, that was all for this one. So keep going. We did 2. Now you could do, depending on what you're beading, you might want to do, 3. You may want to do an earrings that you're doing 4 because you like the bigger earrings. Keep going. And whenever you are done with all of the rows that you wanted to bead, we will pick it up in the next video, and look for that video. It's going to be attaching rhinestone banding. So it's really fun to do. It doesn't take us that long. This was probably going to be your longest part, and it's one part of it's done. Great. So I will see you in the next video.